Lesson 8, Resistant Bacteria. In this lesson, we'll explore the science and engineering practices of constructing explanations and designing solutions. We'll also look at the cross-cutting concepts of patterns, cause and effect, scale, proportion, and quantity, structure and function, and stability and change. So what are resistant bacteria? Many types of bacteria are pathogens, which means that they're capable of causing disease if a person becomes infected. Bacterial infections are often treated using antibiotics, a type of medicine that kills bacteria or it prevents them from growing and reproducing. Some types of bacteria cannot be killed using antibiotics. If this is the case, they are said to be resistant bacteria. These bacteria can spread quickly between people because the antibiotic normally used to treat is no longer effective. Infections caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria are very difficult to treat, especially in patients with weakened immune systems. This is because the range of drugs that can kill the bacteria is so limited. Resistant strains may spread quickly through the population if there is no effective treatment. Mutations in bacteria. Under the right conditions, bacteria reproduce very rapidly. They double their number approximately every 20 minutes. When bacteria divide, random changes called mutations sometimes occur in their genes to produce a new strain. Sometimes a mutation offers a competitive advantage and can spread very rapidly in a population of those bacteria. Antibiotic resistance is a relatively common type of mutation among bacteria. So evidence for evolution. Evolution occurs through the process of natural selection. Normally, evolution happens over thousands of years, far too slow for us to see changes that occur within a population, especially with organisms that have slow reproductive rates. However, because bacteria reproduce rapidly, we can see changes over many generations in a very quick period of time. Antibiotic resistance spreads through a bacterial population by natural selection. This is because resistant bacteria are able to outcompete non-resistant bacteria to produce more offspring. As a result, the population evolves to become resistant over several generations. So why does antibiotic resistance occur? Bacteria that become resistant to antibiotics have a competitive advantage over non-resistant bacteria. This is because their growth and rate of reproduction are not affected by exposure to the antibiotic, nor are they killed. As a result, they can produce more offspring than the non-resistant bacteria. When the resistant bacteria divide, they pass on the gene for antibiotic resistance. Over successive generations, more bacteria in the population become resistant. So how do antibiotic-resistant bacteria evolve? Stage 1. A bacterial infection causes a sore throat. As the bacteria divide, a random mutation causes one bacterial cell to become resistant to a popular type of antibiotic. So here we have our antibiotic-resistant bacteria and our non-resistant bacteria. Stage 2. The patient is prescribed antibiotics by their doctor and told to keep taking them until they're all used up. In stage 3, as the patient takes the antibiotics, the non-resistant bacteria are killed, but the antibiotic-resistant bacteria have a competitive advantage, enabling them to survive. In stage 4, when the patient starts to feel better, they oftentimes stop taking the antibiotics, but the resistant bacteria remain. Stage 5, the surviving bacteria continue to divide and pass on the gene for antibiotic resistance to the next generation. And because oftentimes there's a larger percentage of the population with the resistance, with a competitive advantage, the vast majority of the newly produced bacteria from reproduction exhibit that characteristic as well. These bacteria can then go on to infect someone else. So stage 6, because the resistant strain cannot be treated effectively using the usual type of antibiotics, the bacteria can quickly spread through many people. This 6-stage sequence shows how antibiotic-resistant bacteria can arise. Some of the things that we could consider with regard to this is what will happen to the non-resistant bacteria? What will happen to the percentage of resistant bacteria if they are exposed to antibiotics? And how does that mean the resistant bacteria will take over the patient's body? Could they infect other people as well? I think for the most part, we've answered those questions. So again, looking at the orders or stages of this antibiotic resistance and its development, using Alice as an example. Alice develops a bacterial infection. She's prescribed antibiotics to treat the infection. Some bacteria mutate to become resistant to the antibiotic. The resistant bacteria have a competitive advantage and they divide, and then the resistant bacteria can spread to infect other people. So what is MRSA? MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and is a strain of bacteria that is resistant to several different types of antibiotic. Here we see a picture of MRSA. It is a colored transmission electron micrograph. It is a cross-section of that bacteria. This bacteria is resistant to most antibiotic drugs. Staphylococcus aureus is a gram-positive, spherical, meaning that it's coccus in shape, bacterium. Here its capsule, which is red in color, its cell wall, which is green, and its DNA, which is yellow, are seen. Staphylococcus aureus can cause boils, abscesses, and wound infections. MRSA is of serious concern in hospitals and has caused dangerous outbreaks, particularly in geriatric wards. Its spread may be very hard to control. About 30% of the population carry MRSA without symptoms. In patients that do show symptoms, MRSA can cause pneumonia, blood poisoning, and even death. The antibiotic vancomycin can be used to treat MRSA infection. However, resistance to this antibiotic has also evolved, producing a strand of MRSA that is even more difficult to treat effectively. So how do we prevent antibiotic resistance? Antibiotic resistance is a growing problem in medicine. However, actions can be taken to try and prevent the development of resistant strains. Doctors should not prescribe antibiotics for treating viral infections like influenza. Antibiotics are not effective against viruses. This is because viruses and bacteria replicate differently. Unlike bacteria, viruses replicate inside the cells that they infect. As a result, the antibiotic that is being used is unable to reach the virus to destroy it. When prescribed antibiotics, some people stop taking them as soon as they start to feel better. However, patients should always complete their course of antibiotic treatment. This is because bacteria can remain even when symptoms have gone away. And those bacteria can then go on to mutate into resistant strains. Completing the course of antibiotics increases the likelihood that all bacteria are killed. the strongest antibiotics should be reserved only for the most serious infections. This reduces the risk of bacteria becoming resistant to them. We use a large number of antibiotics in farming. Antibiotics are often used to treat bacterial infections in farm animals. Bacterial infections can otherwise spread easily between farm animals, as they often live very close together. In some countries, antibiotics are also routinely given to farm animals to make them grow faster. In the US, more than 70% of the antibiotics given to farm animals are also used in human medicine. In 2015, a study revealed a strain of MRSA in pigs which could spread to humans, causing skin infections. So what does the future look like for antibiotics? The development of new antibiotics is expensive, and it's very slow. Over the past few decades, a few new antibiotics have become available. There is currently a risk that we will become unable to treat common infections or perform surgeries safely due to the risk of bacterial infection. Governments and the medical and pharmaceutical industries worldwide are beginning to tackle the problem. 95% of the world's population now live in countries that have an action plan in place to try to combat antibiotic resistance. You can do your part to help antibiotics be effective in the future. Techniques to prevent antibiotic resistance include you as a patient taking the full course of antibiotic treatment that is prescribed to you. Doctors limiting the prescription of antibiotics to only those patients that really need them. Meaning that when you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor that you're not feeling real well, and they identify you as having a viral infection, don't expect them to write a prescription for an antibiotic, which will do nothing for the infection that you have. Doctors reserving the strongest antibiotics for the most serious infections. Doctors not prescribing antibiotics for viral infections, as I previously mentioned, and limiting the use of antibiotics to treat livestock in farming. All right, let's look at all of these claims that we see here, and let's identify whether they are true or false. Number one, there is currently a wide range of drugs that can be used to treat MRSA. Number two, you can stop taking antibiotics as soon as you start to feel better. Number three, antibiotics are useful for treating the flu. Number four, the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria is an example of natural selection. And number five, in recent years, many types of new antibiotics have been discovered. So I'd like for you, in your assignment, make sure that you answer these 5 questions correctly.